It was the 3rd year since our divorce. The young woman Arthur had once held a kitchen knife to my throat for, the one he had insisted on marrying, was now pregnant. He was displeased with her swollen belly and her bloated, distorted face. When he went out for a drive to clear his head, he drove to the bakery I owned. I was wearing a light pink lace apron, my figure slender and graceful. Some thugs passing by started to harass me. Arthur was furious, rushing forward to fight them. Afterward, as I dabbed ointment on his wounds with a cotton swab, his little girl called, sobbing, "Honey, where are you? The power's out at home, and I'm scared." Arthur, who had once flown back overnight, abandoning me alone in a foreign land because of a single tear from her, now hesitated for half a second before lying. "I'm working late. If you're scared, just go to bed early." Just as Arthur's car appeared at the intersection, a few rough-looking men were grinning suggestively, asking me for my text message. "Hey beautiful, add us as friends. There are so many of us, just give us a little courtesy." I waved them off, refusing, "It's not convenient." But the men wouldn't give up. "Our brothers have been watching you for days. You don't have a husband or a boyfriend, so what's inconvenient about it?" As they spoke, they reached out to touch the phone in my chest pocket. But before they could touch me, a screech of brakes echoed through the entire street. Arthur slammed his car door open, strode forward, grabbed the thug by the collar, and flung him aside. The lead thug was thrown to the ground with immense force, covered in dust. "Who are you? Mind your own business." But before he could finish speaking, Arthur landed another punch. "She's my wife. Who do you think I am?" The thug had a tooth knocked out, his mouth full of blood, looking in a terrible state. Seeing their leader get hurt, the remaining men swarmed Arthur, intent on avenging him. Unfortunately for them, the adage "Wa fists can't defeat 4 hands" wouldn't apply to the sole heir of the Pei family. Arthur had practiced kickboxing and Brazilian jiu-jitsu since he was a child. Dealing with a few thugs was effortless for him. A few minutes later, the thugs who had just been trying to take advantage of me were now prostrate at Arthur's feet, trembling and begging for mercy. "Sir, we didn't know who you were. We won't do it again. We truly won't." Arthur's gaze swept over them, sharp as a blade, his voice like ice. "Consider this a lesson today. Dare to covet what you shouldn't again, and I'll end your lives." The thugs were scared out of their wits. Feeling feigned innocence in his gaze toward me, I sneered inwardly. We'd been divorced for 3 years, how dare Arthur still call me his wife? "They're gone, don't be scared." After the thugs left, Arthur followed me into the bakery. Our first meeting since the divorce was an adrenaline-fueled scene of a hero saving a damsel in distress. Arthur's gaze swept over my bakery, and a thought formed in his mind, an undeniable sense of triumph, proving that Grace truly couldn't manage without him. His lips parted and closed a few times, trying to strike up a conversation. But I kept my eyes lowered, giving him no opportunity. 6 months ago, I had opened this bakery called Waiting. Because of its cute and cozy aesthetic, it was very popular with young women, and social media influencers often came here to take photos and check in. Last week, a blogger, while taking a selfie, inadvertently captured me arranging cakes behind the counter. When the photo was posted, netizens praised me as the prettiest little cake in the shop. After that, I gained a bit of popularity, and people would occasionally come by to harass me. For this reason, I specifically hired a bodyguard. Even if Arthur hadn't shown up today, the bodyguard I hired would have dealt with those thugs for me. But didn't know any of this. He was absorbed in his self-admiration as a hero saving a damsel, his gaze so tender it could almost melt. "Grace, I once said I'd take care of you my entire life. Even though we're divorced, that promise still stands. Next time you're in this situation, you can call me." Seeing my silence, Arthur simply took my hand. No longer having to manage household chores, iron his suits, or cook him meals, my hands had, over the past 3 years, regained the soft, smooth fairness of a young girl's. Arthur was startled by the touch, then lowered his eyes to my pale pink nails, and his distinct Adam's apple immediately bobbed violently. "Grace." Arthur had held my hand countless times. He had once thought he was tired of it. But now, as he clasped my fingertips, the familiar sensation made him profoundly nostalgic. "Grace, how have you been these past few years?" When we divorced, Arthur wished I would just disappear. Years later, seeing my noticeably good condition, he now expected me to complain to him. The inherent flaws of men were clearly written all over his face. I didn't take the bait, merely remarking calmly, "Why are you here so suddenly? Is Sarah craving cake?" Sarah was Arthur's new wife. Back then, for her sake, Arthur had glared at me coldly and used every means to force me to sign the divorce papers. Yet now, at the mention of that name, Arthur, who had been smiling just moments before, instantly frowned. Does she even deserve cake? When you were 6 months pregnant, you only weighed 95 pounds, but she's already 130 pounds right after conceiving. I don't know if she's going to give birth to a baby or a piglet. Arthur's complaint stopped abruptly when he saw my flat stomach. His thick eyelashes lowered, regretfully sweeping over my slender figure. Grace, if our child were still here, they'd be calling me daddy by now, wouldn't they? Arthur and I were childhood sweethearts. When I was 18, he confessed his love and coaxed me into forbidden pleasures. At 20, as soon as I was of age, he swung me onto his shoulder and took me straight to City Hall. When proudly showed off our marriage certificate to everyone in our circle, they all sighed in admiration. Grace, you're so lucky. For the first 20 years, you'll be doted on by your parents, and for the next 70, by your husband. You'll never have to suffer a day in your life. I heard similar things so often, I truly believed this was my destiny. So, in the 3rd year of our marriage, when Arthur brought Sarah into our home, I felt a sadness so profound it was as if the sky had fallen. Wife, this is a girl I'm sponsoring. Her father is ill and desperately needs money. She doesn't want charity, so she offered to work as a nanny in our home to pay it back. That was the first time I met Sarah. She was clutching the hem of Arthur's clothes, standing behind him, very thin and pale. She had probably waited for Arthur in the rainy night for a long time. She was soaked with rainwater, like a drenched eustoma flower. I looked at her, my heart inexplicably sinking, unable to quite grasp what that feeling was. Then knelt before me with a thud. Mrs. Arthur, please let me stay. My father's illness will cost a lot of money, and I can't just take advantage of Arthur. I beg you, please have mercy and let me repay him. Though sheltered indoors, seemed to be facing a gale. I was startled by her intense reaction and looked at Arthur for help, but merely helped Sarah up tenderly, completely oblivious to my distress. Sarah, I brought you here, I didn't make you kneel. Why are you kneeling before someone else? After more than 20 years as childhood sweethearts, that was the first time Arthur referred to me as someone else. My heart uncontrollably ached. That night, I had a huge fight with Arthur, but it still didn't change the fact that Sarah stayed. And today, 5 years later, Sarah, the primary culprit in my child's death, at 9 o'clock this morning, posted an update: Arthur is the best husband in the world. This little pregnant lady will drink every last drop of the loving rice porridge he personally cooked. A few hours later, the accomplice in my child's death now stood before me, sighing nonchalantly. Grace, I was too young back then. If I had been more mature then, your life wouldn't be like this now. I'm truly sorry. Arthur's gaze at me was filled with guilt. Seeing my indifference, he took down the first aid kit from my cabinet and pushed the iodine wipes towards me. Grace, please disinfect this for me. I got this injury for you. When fought those thugs, he had grazed his knuckles a bit. He wanted me to treat it for him. I picked up a cotton swab in a businesslike manner and pressed it onto his wound. Arthur, thank you for today. But if you're not buying a cake, you should head home. I'm about to close up here. The moment I finished speaking, Sarah's call conveniently popped up on Arthur's screen. Arthur glanced at it, then casually hung up. But immediately after, Sarah called again. Arthur tried to hang up again, but accidentally pressed the answer button. Honey, where are you? The power's out at home, and I'm scared. On the other end of the line, Sarah was sobbing uncontrollably, sounding truly pitiable. Yet listened to her pathetic cries without the slightest hint of emotion. Instead, as if embarrassed, he lowered the volume by 5 notches in quick succession, then replied dismissively, I'm working late. If you're scared, just go to bed early. You're about to be a mother. Do you expect me to come home and comfort you? Sarah paused, then said, but honey, you were always there when I was afraid of the dark before. And I'm pregnant now, you can't just abandon me, boo-hoo. Hearing this, Arthur's impatience became even more evident. Sarah, stop being so dramatic. I'm busy. That's how he characterized Sarah's plea. He then swiftly hung up the phone and smiled faintly, trying to win me over. Grace, those thugs might still be around. Let me drive you home. No need, I coldly refused. But wouldn't give up. Grace, let me do something to make it up to you, okay? Besides, isn't it the Memorial Day for our child today? I want to go see them. Arthur said this. I counted the cakes, tidied the shop, and after taking a photo of the closed door, I uploaded it to the online platform. Closed today. Customers who want cake, please come tomorrow. Don't make a wasted trip. The photo was posted. My followers all replied, acknowledging it. Only one devoted follower, nicknamed Ms. Sarah, started cursing vehemently in the comments. "Bitch. You're seducing someone's husband. You're shameless." Miss Sarah, it was Sarah. She must have seen Arthur's blurry reflection in the building materials across the street, infuriating her. But I was only doing what she had done back then, so why couldn't she keep her composure? Arthur offered to drive me home. When I emerged, he immediately and solicitously opened the passenger door for me. But I merely glanced at it and calmly got into the back seat. Miss Sarah pays attention to details. Don't let her misunderstand. Arthur was prompted by my words to recall the past. He sat there distractedly for a long time before sullenly starting the car. "Grace, I'm sorry. I owed you for the past." It was the 3rd month after Sarah moved into the mansion. Her father passed away despite resuscitation efforts. Sarah cried until she suffered respiratory alkalosis at the hospital. When I rushed to the hospital after hearing the news, Sarah lifted her eyes, red and swollen like a little rabbit's, and innocently gazed at Arthur. "Arthur, my dad was a farmer, and he never saw much of the world in his lifetime. Now, I want him to see it one last time. Can you help me?" Sarah had just experienced the pain of losing a loved one. I didn't want to argue with her, so I spoke before Arthur. "What do you want to do?" "I'll help you." But's gaze remained fixed solely on Arthur. "Arthur, please help me. I really have no other way." Sarah wanted to take her father to see the river and the sea. After agreed, they immediately put Sarah's father's body into the back seat of the car. My Rover, a gift from my best friend, became a hearse without my permission. I stifled my displeasure, not reacting, and was about to get into the passenger seat. But pushed me aside. "Mrs. Arthur, this is my filial piety. You wouldn't try to stop this, would you?" I asked her in surprise. "I've already lent you my car. Do you also need to sit in the passenger seat?" Sarah smiled provocatively. "Mrs. Arthur, I can't exactly sit next to a corpse, can I?" I was so taken aback by her absurdity, I almost laughed, and turned to Arthur for fairness. But looked from Sarah to me, his gaze filled with disappointment. "Grace, are you never going to stop? Do you really have to be difficult at a time like this? When did you become so malicious that you disrespect even a deceased person's wishes?" That time, they stayed out for half a month. During that period, Arthur didn't reply to a single text message or call me once. Later, unable to withstand the silent treatment, I apologized to him. Arthur accepted it. But from then on, Sarah always sat in the passenger seat of Arthur's car whenever they went out. She claimed that sitting in the back would remind her of her deceased father. The excuse was incredibly flimsy. But even up until Arthur and I divorced, he never corrected her habit. "Wife, we're home." By the time Arthur drove the car downstairs, I had fallen asleep leaning against the back seat. Seeing my familiar, yet vulnerable, sleeping face, his heart stirred, and he reached out to touch my thick eyelashes. But just as he reached out, my phone buzzed in my bag. "Grace, we've known each other for so long, I trust you can feel my sincerity. Last time we talked about being together, but..." Arthur's previously relaxed mood was completely ruined by these 2 lines of text. He stared grimly at the screen, his face filled with the irritation of his territory being invaded. He tried to unlock my phone. My birthday, wrong. Our wedding anniversary, wrong. His birthday, wrong. Finally, with no hope left, Arthur entered the date we confirmed our relationship. December 27th. The lock screen was unlocked. Before could even breathe a sigh of relief and marvel that I still had him in my heart, my chat history with someone else immediately appeared before Arthur's eyes. Not long after our divorce, a man named Ethan began to show me constant care and concern. His words were ambiguous. At first, I verbally rejected him, but recently I had begun to waver. After he confessed his feelings last time, I told him I needed time to think. For adults, if it's not a direct refusal, there's always a chance. So, I was preparing to be with someone else? Arthur watched the endless chat history, unable to sit still, his face a mixture of anxiety and jealousy. I woke up and saw him holding my phone, reaching out to snatch it back, but grabbed the back of my head and kissed me. "Grace, we've known each other for 20 years. You can't accept any man but me. I won't allow you to date." That password made Arthur think I still had feelings for him. He was provoked. Even though we were divorced, he still insisted on leaving his mark on me, regardless of the consequences. That group of thugs, and now this man in my phone who was deeply in love with me, all of it stimulated Arthur's possessiveness as a man. When we divorced, he threw me out like trash. He couldn't stand the thought of this trash not staying neatly in the bin, but instead being fought over and coveted by others. Arthur was consumed by jealousy, his breath smelling faintly of stale smoke, as he moved closer and closer to me. However, just as he was about to touch me, a bloated figure suddenly burst out from the green belt next to the mansion. Sarah's eyes were bloodshot, her hair disheveled. She clutched her belly with one hand and frantically pounded on the car window with the other. "Arthur, I'm pregnant with your child, and you're having an affair with your ex-wife. How can you do this to me?" Sarah was 4 years younger than me. Before I divorced, she never missed an opportunity to flaunt her beauty and youth in front of me. But now, Sarah was wearing baggy clothes, her limbs swollen and distorted from pregnancy. Her once delicate features were now engulfed by flesh, completely barely recognizable from her former self. She stood before me, her former arrogance gone, her eyes filled only with jealousy and resentment. "Grace, you're shameless. Arthur already dumped you once, and you're giving him a chance to dump you a second time? Are you really so eager to go back to what he discarded?" Sarah was driven mad by the sight of Arthur forcibly kissing me. She waved her hands, spewing curses at me. I watched her with a calm gaze, saying nothing. Arthur, however, the moment he saw her, abruptly stepped forward, shielding me behind him. "Sarah, what's wrong with you? Who told you to come here?" Arthur roared, annoyed that Sarah was embarrassing him. Sarah gave a miserable smile, her face contorted by the flesh, making her look worse than if she were crying. "Arthur, you dare side with her? I'm your wife." Sarah continued to curse, reaching out to pull Arthur away. She didn't notice Arthur's face was filled with disgust. She thought that catching him in the act would make Arthur feel guilty and apologize to her. But she complained incessantly for a long time. Arthur, meanwhile, simply held my wrist, his eyes lowered tenderly as he looked at me. "Grace, ignore her. She's a lunatic. Let's go see the baby." Arthur said this, and walked with me into the rental apartment. Sarah glared incredulously at our retreating backs, shouting relentlessly, "Arthur, come back. If you dare be with her, I swear I'll kill your son." Sarah threatened him with the child in her belly. Arthur, however, looked utterly impatient, certain she wouldn't dare. He pulled me inside, washed his hands, and took out incense. Then he stood devoutly before the altar table and wiped dust from the small memorial tablet in the center of the room. "Baby, I'm sorry. Back then, Daddy was foolish and made a mistake. Otherwise, you'd be the happiest child in the world right now." Arthur's words were directed at the memorial tablet. Yet his gaze subtly, almost imperceptibly, fell upon me. I pretended not to notice, merely remarking calmly, "Arthur, Miss Sarah is pregnant right now, and it's not good for her to get too emotional. If there's nothing else, you should go back." Arthur used to be very concerned about Sarah. Once, I enthusiastically booked tickets for Arthur and me to Italy, intending to celebrate our wedding anniversary with him, but merely called, sobbing about a power outage at the mansion. Arthur then abandoned me alone on a foreign street and rushed back to her overnight. He disappeared without a word of explanation. I thought he was in danger and searched for him on the streets all night. It wasn't until dawn that I saw Arthur's figure on Sarah's social media post. She and Arthur were intimately intertwined on the sofa I had bought. Sarah, soft and pitiful, wrapped her arms around Arthur's neck and asked, "Arthur, if we're like this, Mrs. Arthur will get angry, won't she?" Arthur was indifferent, only pulling her closer with a sneer. "She knew you were afraid of the dark, yet she deliberately didn't pay the electricity bill for the mansion. She's a malicious woman. Sarah, stop thinking about her. Once I divorce her, I'll marry you." Arthur resented me for stopping the soaked Sarah from coming to our house as a nanny. He was displeased that I had fought with her over the passenger seat when her father died. He even thought that the regional power outage was my doing, an intentional attempt to make things difficult for his little girl. I could and understand why years of affection had devolved into such a mess. On the streets of Italy, I was so nauseous that passers-by took me to the hospital, only to discover I was 3 months pregnant. At that time I loved Arthur to my core, willing to sacrifice my pride to preserve our relationship. On his birthday, I desperately placed the prenatal examination report in front of him. "Arthur, we're having a baby. We've been together for so many years, and we finally have a child. Can you please settle down and come back to our family? I'm begging you." But, upon hearing this, just sneered and overturned the table. "Sarah was right after all, Grace. You really do fabricate lies to deceive me." He pressed a kitchen knife against my neck, his face like ice. "To maintain this disgusting marriage, Grace, you're willing to fabricate a child to trap me, rather than see me with my true love. Grace, how dare you say you love me? You're a wicked woman." Sarah was fragile and pitiful, young and beautiful, and even sensible enough to be a mistress rather than cause us to argue. Arthur was blinded by novelty, believing Sarah was his true love. He was willing to risk my life to be with her. His sharp blade left a bloody scratch on my neck. Before I could say anything else to salvage the situation, a crimson stain appeared between my legs. The baby, sensing that daddy didn't love mommy, left. I was in so much pain my vision blurred, and I collapsed helplessly to the ground. Arthur, however, thought I was putting on an act. He viciously pulled the diamond ring from my ring finger and placed it on Sarah's hand. Grace, if I had known you were so malicious and manipulative, I never would have married you. I fainted from pain in our marital home. If it hadn't been for Arthur's mother suddenly wanting to visit, I would have almost lost both my life and the baby's. Afterward, Arthur glanced at my weak form on the hospital bed, and the pain in his eyes lingered for only a fleeting moment. Grace, you lost a child. I'll give you $1 million. That compensation should be enough, shouldn't it? In that moment, Arthur, who had once shone so brightly in my eyes, became utterly hateful. My heart turned to ash, and I quickly agreed to the divorce. But now, watching Arthur's hypocritical act of burning incense for the baby, I had to admit, I had always held a heavy hatred for both Arthur and Sarah. Grace, Sarah is a lunatic. Ever since I married her, it's like I've been living in a prison. No matter what I do, she suspects me. Just let me stay here for one night. You haven't found a new boyfriend yet, have you? Arthur said this, looking at me ingratiatingly. But I merely glanced at him indifferently, then changed into my loungewear and skillfully poured a full bowl of cat food into a small dish. Back then, Arthur was determined to divorce me. Besides, there was another very important reason. He thought I lacked compassion. Arthur was severely allergic to dog fur, yet he insisted on keeping a stray dog Sarah had brought home from who knows where. I saw him sneeze 7 times in 3 minutes and suggested finding the puppy a new home. Arthur was a bit reluctant, but he still nodded. But the very next day, after I had bathed and groomed the puppy, Sarah came sobbing, clutching the stray dog's corpse, and violently pounded on my door. Grace, I know you hate me, but the dog was innocent. Why did you kill it? If you didn't want to keep it, you should have just chased it away. Why did you have to skin it? The strong smell of blood made my eyebrows twitch wildly. I pushed the door open and saw that the stray dog I had just groomed yesterday had its eyes gouged out, its skin peeled off, and all its teeth pulled. I was heartbroken and shocked, and was about to deny having done any of it. That's when Arthur returned. Seeing the scene before him, he immediately assumed I was the culprit. His eyes, as he looked at me, were filled with horror. Grace, are you insane? This incident completely eroded Arthur's feelings for me. The day after our divorce, he wasted no time and got a marriage certificate with Sarah, who had burned a lot of paper offerings for the dog. But now, under the gentle moonlight, as I finished preparing the cat food, 2 adorable calico cats with lovely fur jumped out into the yard. They meowed, their soft, bushy tails rubbing against my calves, showing complete dependence and trust. Arthur watched them, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curve into a smile. Grace, are these your cats? They're really cute. I said nothing, merely raising a hand gently to tuck the stray hairs from my face behind my ear. Arthur once said I looked my most beautiful from this angle. Indeed, seeing me like this, Arthur's breathing quieted slightly. Grace. The intimate setting, just the 2 of us, allowed a suggestive atmosphere to form. Arthur looked at the thin fabric of my clothes, his voice slightly hoarse, clearly flustered and about to say more. Suddenly, Sarah's curses erupted from outside the yard. Bitch. Grace, you're a bitch, just go die. The kittens bristled, startled by the venomous voice. Arthur, who had just been gazing with tender affection, also snapped back to reality. The environment I had created for him was too perfect. So, upon hearing Sarah's voice again, Arthur reacted with the rebelliousness of a teenager caught playing video games by their parents. To hell with her, Grace, don't mind her. She's the bitch. Sarah has done so many things to frame you, she doesn't deserve to curse you at all. Ever since she married Arthur, Sarah had become a notorious shrew in their circle. Because she knew how Arthur had been stolen, she was terrified of Arthur being taken from her again. After they married, every time Arthur left the house for half an hour, he'd receive a check-in call from her. If he didn't answer, no matter what he was doing, Sarah would show up and demand an explanation. Arthur Tiley found this charming, but later, the gossip in their circle grew more rampant. Arthur's nickname even became Sarah's house slave. Arthur was very concerned with appearances, so he had a huge fight with Sarah. But instead of showing remorse, Sarah's suspicion only intensified, and she changed her check-in calls to every 10 minutes. Arthur was exasperated, so he simply turned off his phone and got drunk. Then, at a friend's club, he saw a video. In the video, Sarah stabbed a kitchen knife into the stray dog's belly. Blood splattered from the puppy's body, staining half of Sarah's face, but Sarah didn't stop. She didn't stop until the dog was completely dismembered, then she smiled with satisfaction. Arthur's hair stood on end as he watched, but a friend's shout brought him back to his senses a little. "Arthur, are you okay? These perverts are truly hateful, but don't worry, give us some time, and we'll definitely find her and teach her a lesson." Arthur's friends were decent and upright, and having had some drinks, didn't recognize the unmade-up Sarah in the video, but recognized her. He broke out in a cold sweat, belatedly remembering that I used to scream at even small insects. I was so timid. If he had just used his brain a little back then, he would have known that stray dog wasn't killed by me. From that day on, Arthur lost all patience with Sarah, he only felt fear. When he thought of me, however, he always felt guilty. Today wasn't the first day Arthur had passed by my bakery. He had been hiding in the corner, observing me for half a month. So, he was actually grateful to those thugs, as they allowed him to rightfully reappear by my side. "Bitch! Stop clinging to my husband! Bitch! Give me back Arthur!" Outside the yard, Sarah was caught on camera, malevolently pacing back and forth near the entrance, viciously tearing apart the camellias I had meticulously planted by the door. As she shredded the innocent petals, she spat towards my doorway. "Grace, why? Oh, you can't win against me. I'm carrying Arthur's child. Even if you sleep with him, it'll be for nothing. He'll come back to me eventually." Sarah's vulgar display was like a slap in the face. Arthur only glanced at her, his face flushing with embarrassment. He opened his mouth several times, trying to say something, but I lowered my gaze, as if stung by her words, and quickly took Arthur's hand, leading him to the door. "Arthur, Miss Sarah is right. We're divorced. She's the one you have a family with now. You must go back with her." As I spoke, a tear fell from the corner of my eye. I paused, then continued, "Arthur, if you hadn't shown up today, I wouldn't have considered dating or getting married again. But you did appear, and we were together for so long. I can't forget those wonderful memories on my own. Perhaps I should also start looking forward." My voice was soft, but tears fell, one after another, from the corners of my eyes, like precious crystals. This exact way of shedding tears, I had practiced thousands of times in front of a mirror over the past few years. Both innocent and pitiful, yet alluringly naive. Arthur watched, stunned, and a fierce flame ignited in his heart. He wanted to tell me that he had misunderstood me back then, that Sarah was actually the real culprit who destroyed our marriage, and that he had merely been manipulated. But before Arthur could speak, Ethan, holding a bouquet of lilies of the valley, knocked softly on my door, as if on cue. "Grace, I truly love you. Give me a chance, will you be my girlfriend?" Through the thin door, Ethan's affectionate voice instantly made Arthur's face change. He pulled open the door, glaring fiercely at the newcomer like an enraged leopard. "Grace is my wife. If you don't want a beating, get lost." Arthur's tone was chilling. But before Ethan could reply, I stepped in front of Ethan, glaring at Arthur in displeasure. "Arthur, we're divorced. You have no right to meddle in my affairs anymore. Please leave." Arthur's hand at his side clenched into a fist. "Grace, don't defend him. He's knocking on your door in the middle of the night, clearly with ill intentions. I just got hurt for you today, and now you're siding with another man. Don't you care if I'm hurt?" After finished speaking, my expression subtly shifted, and I was about to look at his hand. Ethan then took a step forward, firmly shielding me behind him. "Mr. Arthur, Grace has told me everything you've done. You betrayed her, and now you're putting on this act of deep affection? What's the point? You've had your chance. With me taking care of her, she'll never forgive a hypocrite like you." With that, Ethan led me into the room and slammed the door shut. Arthur was caught off guard and nearly had his nose broken by the door. By the time he reacted, his jealous gaze was fixed fiercely on the door, unable to look away. "Grace, open the door. Grace, don't accept him," he kept shouting outside the door. I sat calmly on the sofa, too lazy to respond. Eventually, when Arthur finally grew tired of shouting, Sarah emerged from the shadows like a wild ghost, walked up to him, and patted his shoulder with a smile. "Honey, the baby, and I love you. Come home with us." It was certain that Sarah loved Arthur, but cared least about love. When I offered him my heart, he found me obedient and unchallenged, drawn instead to the immoral thrill that Sarah represented. Now that they could be together openly, Arthur's adrenaline faded, and when he looked at Sarah, he only saw her as vulgar and despicable, her malicious heart unworthy of him. "Don't touch me with your dirty hands." Arthur looked at Sarah's bloated figure with displeasure, stepping back abruptly, his voice hard. "Sarah, I know all about how you framed Grace before. I was deceived by you, which is why I married you. If you don't want a divorce, then don't bother me when I'm in a good mood." After finished speaking, he hailed a cab for Sarah and dismissed her. As if she were a beggar. He, however, stood outside my yard, smoking, guarding it all night. Love is a circulating currency. When's love flowed to Sarah, the person he had been with for years necessarily had to become repulsive to him. Now that his love for Sarah was gone, his stirring affections brought back memories of the joy we once shared. Ethan stayed at my place all night. The next day at noon, when we left the house together, Arthur, who hadn't slept all night, was surrounded by cigarette butts at his feet. Seeing us standing side by side, Arthur's tired eyes immediately scanned me from head to toe. Grace. He was like a hungry beast, desperate to claim all his prey. But I merely gave him a sorrowful look and bent down to get into Ethan's car. It was Sunday, so there were many people. Ethan pushed the shopping cart with one hand, keeping the other protectively at my side, occasionally picking up vegetables from the supermarket counter to ask for my opinion. "Grace, what kind of cuisine do you like? Besides, I can make a few things. This beef looks great, how about we buy some and I make you cilantro beef?" Ethan's voice trailed off. Arthur, who was walking behind us, immediately interjected, "Grace doesn't like cilantro. You say you like her, but you don't even know that much about her. How can you even claim that?" His suggestion was dismissed, but Ethan remained unfazed. He glanced calmly at Arthur, then, with my unspoken consent, placed the beef into the shopping cart. "Mr. Arthur, Grace ate a lot of cilantro when she had hot pot with me for the first time. She's never been the one who dislikes cilantro." Arthur's eyes widened in disbelief. How is that possible? Arthur was sensitive to smells and disliked green onions, ginger, and cilantro. When I was with him, I never ate any of them. Over time, Arthur began to assume his dislikes were my own, believing that our compatibility was why we could always enjoy meals together. Now that the truth was revealed, Arthur, who had just been so confident about Ethan's lack of understanding about me, instantly flushed crimson. It wasn't until Ethan had prepared 4 dishes and a soup that he pushed his way in through the door, carrying a bottle of wine. "Grace, this sweet white wine is the one you used to enjoy. You don't have to let me stay, but please keep this, okay?" Faced with such a formidable competitor, Arthur belatedly felt a pang of panic. He had already lost me once. If he lost me a second time, we would have no connection left in this lifetime. Arthur's innate competitiveness was ignited. He looked at me almost pleadingly, his heart pounding like a drum as he awaited my rejection or my forgiveness. After a moment of silence, I took the wine bottle and met Arthur's gaze. 1 second, 2 seconds, then more than 10 seconds later, I slightly moved aside, allowing Arthur to enter. Arthur was like a dog. Simple affection held no appeal for him. He preferred being slapped hard and then given a treat. And I happened to be in the mood to train a dog. At the dinner table, Arthur and Ethan engaged in a relentless verbal battle. Both of them eagerly piled food onto my plate. If I took one more bite of food that Ethan had served me, Arthur would grip his ceramic chopsticks so tightly they'd creak. "Grace, an outsider's chopsticks are dirty, you should be careful not to catch anything from him." Ethan raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Mr. Arthur, are you referring to me as an outsider? Before I came to see Grace yesterday, I made sure to get a physical exam, and the report shows everything is normal with me. As for you, Mr. Arthur, don't you have a pregnant wife waiting for you at home? Wouldn't it be inconvenient for you to stay much longer?" "You." Arthur was speechless, unable to argue with Ethan. Just then, Sarah called. He merely glanced at the phone before forcefully hanging up. "Grace, just give me some time, I'll handle everything." As he spoke, Sarah called T. more times. Arthur, his eyes full of annoyance, didn't want to answer. But I reached over his arm and answered it for him. The moment the call connected, Sarah's weak, trembling voice came from the other end. "Arthur, I fell, and the baby. The baby seems to be coming. Please, help me." Arthur froze, his limbs stiff, about to say something. I had already grabbed the car keys and took his hand. "Arthur, the baby is innocent, you need to go quickly." In that moment, I felt myself radiate with a divine and maternal glow. By the time Sarah, screaming in pain, was finally pushed into the operating room, my image was still replaying repeatedly in Arthur's mind. He had thought I wished Sarah dead. But not only did I not, I even put aside past grievances to help him get Sarah to the hospital. Arthur's Adam's apple bobbed. His heart swelled with emotion, not because his and Sarah's baby was about to be born, but because of me. How could I be such a good person, and how had Sarah's deceit blinded him before? Sarah's fall had been dangerous. Doctors and nurses went in and out with blood bags multiple times before they finally saved her life. Her prematurely born boy weighed 4 pounds, 3 ounces. Arthur only glanced at him before he was hastily sent to the incubator. Once everything had settled, Arthur took out his phone to call me. Grace, Sarah, and the baby are fine today, all thanks to you. She gave birth to a boy. When would be a good time for you? Before could finish, I sighed softly. It's good that her baby is okay. Arthur, it's not easy for a new mother. Please take good care of her. After saying that, without waiting for Arthur to say anything more, I hung up and immediately blocked him. Sarah's baby was fine. But my baby could not be saved. After realized he had inadvertently hurt me, he desperately tried to make amends, but all his calls went unanswered. He went to wait, but a closed sign had already been placed at the entrance of the bakery. Arth. You are waited in my yard, disbelieving. But even after he opened the cat food and placed a full bowl in the open, not a single calico cat was drawn to it. I was like an ethereal dream, making him joyful and sorrowful, then intensely jealous, before gracefully departing. Arthur loved this push and pull, especially when Sarah could only bring him endless trouble. Arthur searched for me for an entire month. During this time, Sarah's days and nights were inverted caring for the baby, and her incision became severely inflamed. Their child, also premature, was frequently rushed to the emergency room, multiple times clinging to life. Sarah weakly pleaded with Arthur to help her, but merely glanced at her clothes, stained with milk, and turned his head away in disgust. Sarah, stop playing the victim. You're from the countryside, how can you be so delicate? Besides, this is what you owe Grace. If it hadn't been for you back then, our baby wouldn't have died. Once the novelty wore off, whenever Arthur looked at Sarah, his mind was filled only with the cruel, twisted expression she had when she brutally killed the dog. He didn't want to play along with her pretense. When he saw a photo of Ethan and me on Ethan's social media post, he immediately brought his lawyer to Sarah. Sarah, if you hadn't provoked trouble between Grace and me back then, I would never have been with you. The way you are now, you're completely unworthy of me. Here's the divorce agreement, sign it quickly, don't waste my time trying to find Grace. With her baby burning with fever in her arms, Sarah, her hair disheveled and eyes vacant, listened to Arthur's intentions before suddenly laughing. Arthur, you want a divorce? Don't even dream about it. I just gave birth, I'd rather die than let you have him. Sarah thought Arthur would postpone his plans for the sake of the child. But, hearing this, simply raised an eyebrow with a cold smirk. A child with dog-abusing genes? No thanks. Sarah, agree to the divorce, and I'll give you 500,000. Let's part ways amicably. Sarah froze for a second, then burst into maniacal laughter. 500,000? Arthur gave her $1 million even though that baby never even made it. Why would you think I'd agree to 500,000? Perhaps a mistress always likes to compare who the man values more. Sarah couldn't accept this outcome. She picked up the water glass from the table and forcefully smashed it at Arthur. Arthur was hit on the forehead and drenched with milky-smelling water. He left displeased and never visited the hospital room again. He started tracking Ethan's online presence. When we were in Japan, he followed us to Japan. When we went to Singapore, he relentlessly pursued us. But under my careful manipulation, he was always a little behind us each time, until Ethan and I landed in Iceland. Beneath the sprawling aurora, Arthur ran towards me from afar, his eyes filled with deep affection. Grace, I truly regret it. Will you come back with me? I love you, I can't let you go. Let's get remarried. Ordinary days were too dull for him. Arthur absolutely adored this kind of brilliant and entangled life, like something out of a TV drama. I looked at him, my eyes welling up with tears from the cold, and said nothing, but that was enough for Arthur. After a few days in Iceland, we booked tickets to return home. The plane landed. I was waiting for our luggage at the baggage claim. Arthur, while contacting a driver, walked briskly towards the exit. But before he had taken more than a few steps, a figure violently slammed into him. Are you blind? Arthur angrily pushed the person away, but when he looked down, he met Sarah's deranged eyes. What are you doing here? Arthur asked, displeased, and was about to say more when a sharp pain shot through his lower abdomen. He looked down and saw an endless stream of blood seeping from his lower abdomen. Sarah, with a cruel smile, lunged forward and stabbed him 3 more times before he could even react. Arthur trembled with pain, his face suddenly ashen. Blood dripped from him, drop by drop. He wanted to call for help, but he had no strength left in his body. He could only turn his head in terror and look at me. "Grace, help me." His lips moved, likely uttering those words. But I, the only one in the busy crowd who noticed the anomaly, simply smiled faintly. "Arthur, you deserved it." Sarah's background information was something I had already clarified shortly after Arthur and I divorced. When she was young, to secure Arthur's sponsorship spot, she and her parents had personally married off her academically excellent older sister to a lonely old man in the village. After her sister became pregnant, she took her sister's name to go to school, appearing before Arthur multiple times. After graduating from college, her mother, seeing that she could no longer receive Arthur's monthly allowance, wanted her to return to the village and marry. Sarah outwardly agreed, but barely half a month after she returned to the village, her mother became deceased due to accidental pesticide ingestion. Her father, who had eaten less of that meal, suffered severe brain nerve damage but survived. Sarah thought about it, then brought her father to Arthur, begging him for help. Before that, she had already had a job for half a month at a bar Arthur frequently visited. She had overheard Arthur's conversations with his friends. From his words, she sensed his subtle annoyance towards her. Thus, Sarah naturally moved into his home. And naturally, she got Arthur. She had schemed her entire life, believing she had finally succeeded, but just then, Arthur brought up divorce to her. And he wanted to dismiss her with 500,000. How could a lunatic like Sarah possibly agree? Arthur couldn't find my secondary account, but Sarah had a habit of stalking my online presence. She saw in my updates that Arthur booked me a hotel room for 70,000 a night. She saw that, to win my favor, he casually bought 2 million in jewelry. She was so furious she couldn't sleep all night. Looking at the child who shared half of Arthur's blood, her maternal love suddenly vanished. "You useless thing, I struggled to give birth to you, so why doesn't he like you?" She watched as the child's face turned blue and purple from being choked. A surge of satisfaction coursed through Sarah. But when she let go, the infant could no longer cry. Sarah panicked and quickly called Arthur. But unfortunately, Arthur was in the shower, and I answered the phone. Just as Sarah had once done to me, I smiled sweetly on the other end of the line, feigning innocence and awkwardness. "Miss Sarah, is there something you need Arthur for?" "He's in the shower, how about I pass on your message?" I had been treated this way before. I knew exactly how hysterical Sarah would become after this call ended. But I didn't expect Sarah to act faster than I anticipated. Arthur, stabbed 3 times, was too weak to stand. Just before he collapsed, Sarah caught him and forcibly dragged him into a car. I watched all of this with a poker face. Half an hour after Sarah drove away with Arthur, I frantically called the police. By the time the police were chasing Sarah across the city, Arthur, in her back seat, had already stopped breathing due to excessive blood loss. Meanwhile, Ethan and I sat facing each other in a comfortable restaurant, clinking our glasses with smiles. Evil people bring about their own destruction, Grace. We finally succeeded. Indeed. I recalled the look of sudden realization in Arthur's eyes just before he died. I tilted my head back and drained the wine glass. An indescribable sense of satisfaction filled my heart. Sarah was apprehended and brought to justice that very night. For intentional homicide, she was sentenced to death. On the day of her execution, Ethan took Buddy's ashes and walked around outside the prison. Sarah was addicted to animal cruelty. Buddy, Ethan's dog for 8 years, was lured into an alley by her with a hot dog and never returned. His mother suffered a heart attack because of it and died on the spot. Ethan had cooperated with me in this elaborate charade to avenge his family. With vengeance served, Ethan could finally sleep soundly. As for me, looking at the baby's small memorial tablet in the house, I broke into a genuine smile. The old matters concluded here. I had done right by the part of me that once gave my heart to Arthur, and I had done right by the baby who chose me as their mother. As for the future, I thought, it couldn't possibly be worse than yesterday.